Everyone, and welcome to another part of inequalities. So here today we are going to deal with inequalities. So how are we supposed to solve them? So we have these sets of problems which we are going to tackle. So when solving inequalities involving the quadratic equations, we are going to use the same way we solve equations. So what it is going to be is, firstly, if we have such type of an arrangement, we are going to find our product. We know that our product is equal to AC, and our A, B, we have our C there. Then what we are going to have is multiply the coefficients of A is 1 times our C is -6, which will be a -6 like that. Then we have our sum. Our sum is the coefficient of B, which should be equal to, in this case, it is equal to 1 like that. Then we are going to have our factors. So our factors in this case are the numbers which when we add, they are going to give us +1. When we subtract, they are going to give us when we multiply, they are going to give us -6, which will be our 3 and a 2. So what we are going to do is we are going to replace this in our B there. So what we are going to have is we have for our x squared, we have plus our x minus 6 less than 0. So we are going to say x squared plus our 3x minus our 2x minus our 6 less than 0 like that. Then what we are going to have is we are going to factorize here. So we have our x, open brackets, x plus 3 like that. Then we have -2. -2 is common. Then we have our x. We are remaining with x. Then we have our +3. If you divide -2 here, -2 here, we are going to have that. So we have less than 0. If you don't know how to factorize this, you should comment. I forward you the link. So we have our x plus our 3 like that. We have another bracket which is our x minus 2 less than 0 like that. So we just pick one bracket and all that. So this is the approach that we are going to be using. So now when you reach this point, what we are going to be having is that instead of saying that your x value is less than let's say, instead of you just saying x plus 3 less than 3 and x minus 2 less than 0, in which case we have a 0 there, in which case we are going to have our x is less than -3 and our x is less than 2. So this is not how inequalities work. We cannot just directly find it like this. So sometimes it may work, but other times it may not. So instead of just from here you do this, no. So what we are going to be doing is that we are going to be finding our critical values. So the critical values are just the zeros of the equation. So you are just going to get these and equate them to 0. So x plus 3 should be equal to 0, or x minus 2 should be equal to 0. So what we are going to have is our x should be equal to -3, or our x should be equal to +2 if we take the 2 the other side. So now, since this is an inequality, you are going to use your critical value to find the range. The inequality gives you the range of values. So this means that if you have something like this, let's say now we have a -3. Let's say we put our -3 here. We have our +2 here. So now if this is the case, what we are going to simply have is that we have, let's say this is our number line. But for this video, we are not going to be using the number line because it's a bit unordered. So we are going to be using the table, but I need the number line to explain this. So now if you look at this, what we are going to have is we have 3 parts where x lies. So if you look at here, there are values like, let's say here it could be -10, it could even be -100. So as you go there, so now x values, in this case, x values can take different values. So like for example, if we are to consider that our x lies here, we would say that x is less than 2, because all the values that are here we could have -4, we could have -5, we could have, let's say, -20. So in other words, all the values that are this side, that are on the left of 3 are less than 2, or are less than, sorry, not 2, they are less than your critical value, your smallest critical value, which is our negative 3, like that. Then at the middle here, from here up to here, before we look at that one, let's first see what values of x are this side. So as you move from here going to the right, all the values that are here are either, let's say 3, we have 4, we could have 10. All the values, in other words, all the values that are on the right of 2 are greater than 2. So what we are going to do is we are going to say that our x is greater than 2. So this means that you are talking about all the values that are this side. They are all greater than 2. That's the meaning. Now, if we look at it from that perspective, we are going to end up with this. So we have the second interval. Then the third interval, we have from 3 to 2. So here we have values such as, let's say, -2, we have -1, we have 0, we have 1, then we have a 2. So in other words, all the values from 3 to 2, here we are going to have an interval. So the interval will be such that we are going to say -3 is less than x, but x is less than 2. So we are just looking at values that are in between -3 and 2. You will realize that those values might be -2, -1, 0, and 1. So now, what can you say? So firstly, we are going to have all the values that are in between -3 and 2. They are greater than -3. So you can say -3 is less than x. So all these values, -2, -1, are greater than -3. But at the same time, all these values are less than 2. So this is how we come up with that interval. If you want, you can count. You can just be able to use the number line, though the number line is a bit disordered, but let's use it. Then using the number line, we can also now use the sign table, which we are going to be mostly focusing on. So now to find out which part of the equation will produce your answers, this is what you do. So using the number line, we are going to have, so let's look at this part of the equation. If we say, let's say that our x, if x is less than -3, it means that x could be equal to, let's say, -4. It could be any value that is less than -3. At the middle, if x is in between -3 and 2, you can use -2, you can use -1, you can use 0. So here we can say that x is equal to 0. We can just pick any. Then the last number, here we can say that our x can be equal to, if x is greater than 3, it could be equal to 2. Then what we are going to do is we are going to open our brackets. We have our equation, which we factorize to be x plus 3. So we had our x plus 3 and our x minus 2, like that. Then we are told that it should be less than 0, like that. Now let's see which part of the equation will produce the answer that is less than 0. Let's say we take our -4 there. So if x is equal to, so we are going to be taking them in two parts. So we test this part, then we also test the interval. We test that whatever gives you less than 0, it means to say it's your solution. So in this case, we can say that if we are saying that at our x is equal to -4, so what we are going to have is, we have our x, where there is x, we can put -4, then we have plus 3, then we have our -4, then we have -2, less than 0, like that. So what we are going to have, -4 plus 3 will give us -1, like that. Then we have our -4 times -2, we are going to have our -6, like that, which should be less than 0. So as you can see, we have our -1 times 6, it's +6, less than 0. This is false. So meaning to say, the solution does not lie for x, does not accept your x is less than -3. Let's look at our interval. For the interval part, so as we can see, we have our 6 is less than 0. So what this means is that as long as you have your -4, let's say we have our -5, all the values here will be considered to be positive. All the values that are this side of 3 will be considered to be positive, like that. So let's see what the sign will be here. So the sign, so our sign here has to be negative for us to use it, because we are saying that whatever the product is, it should be less than 0 according to what we have. So what are we going? So we have for the interval, which is saying that we have our -3 less x less 2, like that. Let's say on this interval, let's say our x is equal to 0. So we are going to have our 0. Where there is x, we put 0. We have +3. Then we have our 0 minus our 2 less than 0. So we can have a 3 like that. Then we have our -2 should be less than 0. Our -2 times 3 gives us -6 is less than 0, which is true. So all the signs that will be at the middle here means to say all of them will be negative, because we have gotten a negative value. Then last but not the least, let's see what sign, because an inequality may have different solutions. So let's have here, when we have our x is greater than 2, it means that x at this point could be equal to, let's say, +3, because that's the value that is greater than 2. So what we are going to have is this. So getting the equation, which is saying that we have our x plus 3, we have our x minus 2 should be less than 0. Let's say at x is equal to 3. So at this point, we are going to have our 3 plus 3. Then we have our 3 minus 2. We are just replacing, less 0. So we have our 3 plus 3 gives us 6. Our 3 minus 2 gives us 1. Should be less than 0. So our 6 times 1 gives us 6 less than 0, which is false. So all the values that are on the left, that are on this side, will be considered to be positive. Let me just uplift. So according to what we are having, we have a positive outcome here, we have a negative outcome here, we have a positive outcome here. So this means that the solution that satisfies our x plus 3 and our x minus 2 as they are multiplied less than 0 should be a negative. So we are going to take this one as our solution, in which case we are going to say -3 is less than x is less than a 2, like that. So this is our solution. Now in the solution, so our solution set will be such that we have our -3 is less than x is less than 2. That means to say the lowest is -3, not included, since it's not less than or equal to. So not included, we use an open brackets, comma, the highest value is a 2, which we are not also going to include. So that's our solution set. Now let's very quickly use the table. So under the table, we have found our intervals. So these are the ones that we are going to use even to come up with the table, the same intervals. So using the table, this is what we are going to have. So we are going to have our factors. So our factors of the equation are the ones that we factorize as our x plus 3 and our x minus 2. So we are going to put these here. So we are going to have our x plus our 3, like that. Then we also have our x minus 2. So under this table, we are just going to write the sign. Now, if you see these are two brackets, meaning to say they are multiplying. So the result, we are going to call it the product, like that. Then when we reach this stage, we are going to put, here, we are going to put the smallest range, which is our x is less than -3. Then when we are here, we should have an interval. So -3 less x less than 2, like that. Then from there, we are going to look at our last one, which is our x is greater than 2. Now from here, we can put our values. So if we had our x is less than 3, it means to say x can be equal to -4. The range x should be equal to 0. Here our x can be equal to 3, like that. So putting them, we have our -4, we put it here. We are going to have our -4 plus our 3 for this one, which will give us -1. So here we are going to put our negative. We get this again, -4 times, we put our -4 here. We are going to have -4 minus 2, which is equal to -6, like that. Then we are going to have -4 minus 2, which will give us a negative. So we are just going to write the sign. Product means multiply the two signs. Negative times negative will give you positive. Then we are here. If we get this 0, we put it here. it will be a 0 plus 3, which will be 3. So we are going to put a positive here. If we get this 0 and put it here, we are going to have a 0 minus 2, which is equal to negative 2. In this case, it will just be negative there. Then positive times negative, we are going to have a negative like that. Last but not the least, we have our x is equal to 3. Then we are going to have our 3 plus our 3 like that. 3 plus 3 will give us, if we put 3 here, it will give us a positive 6, which we are going to write positive. Then if we put 3 here, it will be 3 minus 2, which will be equal to positive. Positive times positive, it will give us a positive like that. So now, if you look here, we are going to take our negative. Why take the negative? Because they are telling us that the product of the two brackets should be less than 0. So you are going to have, we have the x plus 3 and our x minus 2. We are told that it should be less than 0. So which one? If we multiply these two as our product should be less than 0. So we are going to take a negative. It's the one that is less than 0. So we are going to say our solution, just taking it here, we are going to have a negative 3 less than 2, negative 3 less than 2, less than x less than 2 like that. So this is our solution. Then there's the interval. We are going to be using our negative 3, which is the same question we have answered. So same approach for this one. We have already factorized this one, so we are going to just go direct. So this is the same as our x squared. When we factorize this, you can just look at how we have factorized it in the previous question. Then we have plus our 3x, we have minus 2x, we have minus 6 is greater than or equal to 0 like that. So what we are going to end up with is, let's factorize this, just this part of the equation. We have our x is common, open brackets, we are remaining with 1x. Then we have plus 3. Then we have minus our 2 is common. Then we are going to have our x minus our plus our 3 like that. Should be greater than or equal to 0. So we are going to have one bracket x plus 3. Then the other bracket, it will be our x minus 2, which we have already factorized. Should be greater than or equal to 0 like that. So what we are going to do is, from here, let's use now the table. So using the table, firstly, let's find our critical values. So our critical values are the zeros of the equation. So the critical values will be such that we have our x plus 3 should be equal to 0, or our x minus 2 should be equal to 0. So our x should be equal to, we take the 3 here, we are going to have negative 3, or our x should be equal to, we take the 2 the other side, it will be x is equal to positive 2 like that. Then we are going to have our number line, which can just help us know the values that we have. So we are going to have our negative 3 here, we have our 2 there. Then we are going to have all the values that are on the left of 3 are less than negative 3. So all the values that are this side are less than negative 3. Then here, all the values that are this side are greater than 2. So our x is greater than 2 at this point. Then here it will be an interval, which will be beginning at negative 3, less than x, less than 2, like that. So these are what we have. So when we do this, we can now come up with a table, which we are going to be using. So using our factors, what we have is, one of the factors, it's our x plus 3. The other one is our x minus 2, like that. Then we have our product. Then for the first box, we write our smallest critical value. This smallest range, we have our x is less than negative 3. Here we have an interval, negative 3 less x less than 2. Then we have finally our x is greater than 2, like that. So here you just use less than, or less than, greater than, but you don't use less than or equal to on the table. So what we are going to have is, at this point, your x can be equal to negative 4, like that. Then at this point, x can be equal to 0. So the x less than negative 3 could be negative 4. Then last x could be equal to 3, like that. So we are going to have, when x is equal to negative 4 like that, when we put it here, we have negative 4. Same approach, negative 4 plus 3 will give you negative 1. So we write the sign to be negative. Here, if we put our negative 4, what we are going to have is negative 4 minus 2 will give us negative 6, which is a negative. Negative times negative, it will be positive. Then we have x should be equal to 0. So we have our x plus 3 will give us 0 plus, when we put our 0 here, it will be 0 plus 3, which will be a 3, which in this case will be positive. Then when we are here, we have our 0 minus 2. 0 minus 2 will be a negative. Last but not the least, we are going to multiply the signs. Positive times negative, it will give us a negative. Then we are here, when we put our 3 here, it will be 3 plus 3, which will be a positive. When we get here, we are going to have 3 minus 2. It will be still a positive, which is 3 minus 2 is positive 1. Positive times positive, it will give us a positive. Now let's see which part of the solution allows us to do this. So we are going to have for our interval is saying that x should be x plus 3 and our x minus 2 should be greater than or equal to 0, like that. We are going to take which position gives us a value that is greater than or equal to 0. So in this case, the one that is greater than 0 should be a positive, like positive 1, positive 2. So all of those that are giving you positive are the solutions. So we have this one is our solution, this one is our solution, like that. So what we are going to have is we are going to take our positives like that. So the interval that corresponds to that are our x should be less than negative 3 is allowed. Now since we had in the original equation it's saying that less than or equal to, so meaning to say we can do this. Then we also have, or we have our x is greater than or equal to 2. So we are also going to take this interval since it's giving us a positive, like that. Then or means union. So we are going to say, to find our solution set, we are going to say if x is less than or equal to negative 3, that means to say your lowest x value will be a negative infinity. That's the lowest, that's the smallest number that is less than negative 3. Then you are going to say comma negative 3. Now since negative 3 is included, you're going to use a square bracket. Or means union, so we are going to say union of, we are going to say if x is greater than 2, it means to say the smallest could be is greater than or equal to 2. The smallest could be a 2, but the highest would be a positive infinite. So meaning to say we are going to use a square bracket to put a 2, then we are going to say the highest will be a positive infinite, like that. Then this bracket simply implies that this is your highest value of x, but you cannot reach an infinite, so we use an open bracket for that one. Let's look at our last problem. So if we have this other problem, we are just going to use the same approach. So the same approach will be such that we are going to find our products first. Our product, if we have our a, we have our b, we have our c. So our product is equal to ac, in which case we are going to multiply our coefficient of a, which is 6, times the coefficient of c, which is our negative 14. So if we multiply this, we are going to have a negative 84, like that. Then we have our sum. Our sum is equal to b, in this case, which should be equal to 17, like that. Then if the sum is positive 17, our factors will be such that it will be equal to two values, which when we multiply them, they should give us a negative 84. When we add them, they should give us 17. So we are going to have a positive 21. If you add it to a negative 4, you are going to have a positive 17, like that. So in this, we are going to put them on our b. So we are going to have our 6x squared. Then we have plus, where there is 17, we can put a 21x. Then we can have a minus 4x minus 14 less than or equal to 0. So what we are going to do is we are going to factorize this. So here for 6 and 21, what is common is a 3x, like that. Then we are going to have a 6 divided by 3 will give us 2. X squared divided by x will give us x. Then we have plus 21 divided by 3 will give us a 7, like that. Then we have our negative 4, like that. then we are going to have x minus 14. It will be equal to our 4 is not common. We are going to use a 2 is common, negative 2 for that matter. Negative 2 divided by negative 4. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 will give us a positive 2, x like that. Negative 2 divided by 14, it will give us a plus 7 like that. So plus 7, then we are going to have this should be less than or equal to 0 like that. So what we have one thing in the brackets, so we are going to have one bracket, it will be 2x plus 7. The other bracket, it will be 3x minus our 2 like that. So this should be less than or equal to 0 like that. So when we do this, we can now find our critical values. So our critical values are the zeros of the equation. So it will be our 2x plus 7 and our 3x minus 2. This should be equal to 0. So what we are going to have is our 2x plus 7 should be equal to 0, or our 3x minus 2 should be equal to 0 like that. So this gives you 2x, we take the 7 the other side, it will be equal to negative 7. We divide by 2, we divide by 2. We are going to have our x should be equal to negative 7 over 2. But for the sake of, as we go on to use the table, so negative 7.2 is approximately or exactly equal to negative 3.5. So what you can do is 7 divided by 2 will give you a 3. Remainder will be 1. You write a point, then you put a 0 there. 10 divided by 2 will give you negative 3.5. That's how come we have that. Then the other part, it's equal to, we have our 3x. The 2 crosses the sign, we have a 2 there, over 3, which will be our x should be equal to positive 2 over a 3. So now this one is approximately equal to 0.67. So we can use the same approach. We have this one should be equal to 0. 2 divided by 3 is 0 points. We add a 0. 20 divided by 3 gives us 6. We add the remainder is 2. It continues like that, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, which in this case can be rounded off to 0.67. So these approximates are very important as we now come up with our final answer. So from this, the smallest value is a negative value, which we are going to write as our negative 7 over 2. Then the last value, which is our 2 over 3. So now the approach is the same. All the values that are here, that are this side, are less than this value. So we are going to say x less than negative 7 over 2. Here we are going to have our negative 7 over 2. It will be an interval, is less than x, is less than our 2 over our 3 like that. So here now we are going to have all the values that are this side are greater. So we are going to say x is greater than the 2 over 3. The values that are here could be a 2 and all that. Now when we do this, let's come up with our table now. So our factor, the equation was equal to x. We have plus 7 over a 2. We also have another one which was our x minus 2 over our 3 like that. So this was our factors. So we can say that we have our x plus our 7 over a 2. Then we also have our x minus 2 over a 3. Then here we are going to use the smallest interval, which is our x should be less than the smallest interval, which is our negative 7 over 2 over a 2. Then here we are going to have an interval, negative 7 over 2 less x less than our 2 over 3, which we are just uplifting from here. Then the last one will be our x is greater than the highest critical value, which is this one in this case. So what we are going to have is, we are going to, if our x is less than 7 over 2, that means to say x can be equal to negative 4. 7 over 2, we have approximated it to be 3.5. So it could be equal to negative 4 like that. If it is an interval, negative 7 over 2 is less than, x is less than 2 over 3. We know that 7 over 3 is negative. 7 over 2 is negative 3.5, and our 2 over 3 is 0.67. So we ask ourselves, what is the number that is in between these? So even 0 can qualify to be between these two numbers. It could be 0 or 0 point something. If you want, you can use a negative 2, because negative 2 is less than 3.5. But for the sake of simplicity, we are going to use a 0 there. Then we are here. All the values that are greater than 2 over 3. If 2 over 3 is 0.67, we can even say that x is equal to 1. If you want, you can use 2. So with that, we can now replace. So we have our negative 4 like that. Negative 4, if we put it here, if we put our negative 4, it will be, if we put our negative 4 here, negative 4 plus 7 over 2. We know that negative 4 plus our 7 over 2 is 3.5. So we are going to have a value of our negative 4 plus 3.5 will give us a negative 0.5. So it will be equal to a negative at this point. We are going to use the same negative 4 without wasting time. So if you put it like that, your negative 4 plus 3.5 will give you negative 0.5. Now when we are here, if we put negative 4 here without wasting time, we have a negative 4 minus a 2 over 3, which is approximately, without wasting time, both are negative. So even the result will be negative 0.67. It will be equal to a negative 4.67 if we subtract those. So we are going to have a negative. Then we have our product. So our product in this case is equal to this times this. It will give us a positive like that. So looking at the last one, if x is greater than 2 over 3, we know that 2 over 3 is the same as 0.67. We can just put it here. So our x here should be equal to, let's say, positive 1, because it's greater than this. So we are going to put our 1 here where there is x. So this is the same as having our 1 plus 7 over 2. And we know that 7 over 2 is 3.5. So we can say 1 plus 3.5 will give you 4.5, which is positive. So we are going to write a positive here. Now we are here, our x minus 2 over 3. So if x is equal to 1, we are going to have 1 minus a 2 over a 3, which will be equal to, if we get our common denominator is 3, then our 3 divided by 1 times 3, it will be a 3 there. Then we have 3 divided by 3 is 1 times 2, it will be that. So we have 1 over 3. 1 over 3 is positive, so the result here will be positive like that. If that's the case, we can have positive times positive, it will be a positive value. So the result that we are looking for is, let's look at our factorized equation. So this was our factorized form. So it's saying that whatever products that you should get, if you, as you can see, these brackets means multiply, and the result is the product. So if you multiply these, you should have a value that is less than 0. So the only value that is less than 0 is a negative value. So we are going to take this as our solution. In this case, it will be a negative 7 over 2 less x less, we are just writing this interval, less our 2 over 3 like that. Now it's saying that should be less than or equal to, so we even attach those in our answer. So the solution set will be, since we are including a 7 over 3, it will be 7 over 3 is included, so square brackets negative 7 over 2, then we have comma our 2 over 3, which should be included like that. So this is what we have for the equation. So this is how we go about those problems. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you would like, subscribe, and share for more. See you in the next tutorial.